Hello and welcome back to The Loyal Sons Show. That's at The Loyal Sons on Twitter and Instagram. Follow us there and follow us here for Pitt sports content you won't want to miss. If you love reminiscing about the Big East and hate Jim Boeheim, this is the place for you. The Loyal Sons Show, a safe, sunshiny place for your Pitt Athletics fix, presented by Section 5. My name is David, and I am joined, as always, by Squid and Dylan, and we have a doozy for you today. Special guest, Chevy Troutman. That's a big one we got coming up for you guys. Really exciting, great interview. But we're going to start here today with some brand spanking new football news. The 2023 schedule was released this past week, and we have some feelings. Squid, Dylan, tell me your initial feelings.
Going to New York
and South Bend. I think I'll be in South Bend. Can't go to New York. I have a wedding that weekend. Fall weddings, ban them forever. But you guys will have a good time in Yankee Stadium. Another first feeling is the back-to-back of Florida State and Notre Dame. Sorry, it's at Notre Dame, then at home against Florida State. Seems to be the toughest two-game stretch, but I also have to remind myself that this time last year, we thought the Miami game was going to be the de facto coastal title game. And instead, we were just playing a 5-win Miami team and beat them by 30 in a uneventful 8 p.m. ACC network kickoff.
I was just looking under the schedule, and it feels so weird not playing Miami. I got to get used to the no divisions thing.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the new bubble, the pods, I think they're calling it.
Why? Because we got the easiest one by like a lot.
Yeah. But also,
same team.
It's nice to feel like you're in the same conference as teams in the Atlantic or teams who were in the Atlantic. Like, we've played Louisville, Wake, but these teams, once every 6 years. So it actually feels like we're in the same conferences as the people on the other side. So I'm a fan, and obviously a big plus was getting the easy draw there, not getting a Clemson or a UNC, who's kind of known as a Miami. We get BC,
Syracuse, and Virginia Tech. So one program in a full rebuild, and two programs that are just kind of on life support on a year-to-year basis too. Like not rebuilding. I would not call those rebuilding organizations. But yeah, aside from getting a pretty easy pod, schedule's kind of tough next year. I'm gonna try to temper my expectations because you're playing at West Virginia. You have Cincinnati the second week of the year, and then North Carolina the fourth week of the year. So, after Wofford, it gets pretty serious pretty quickly after that opener. You got Cincinnati at West Virginia, then Drake May is coming to Heinz Field, and then later in the season, we are playing at Notre Dame, and then home against a Florida State team that people are already talking about way too much.
Yeah, I was fully convinced that Florida State was going to be a problem this year. Just watching them play down the stretch, I'm like, Jordan Travis is actually good. What a plot twist.
Right.
But the fact that they're the team that's getting so much attention, like I saw somebody have them as their preseason number 4 in like the way too early rankings. And when I saw that, I'm like, okay, they're going to go like 8-4 this year.
And that was like Sports Illustrated or ESPN, right?
Yeah, it was a pretty prominent publication. So they'll be this year's Miami just because that's how it works.
It makes all the sense in the world for them to be getting hype. They looked really good last year, and they're returning everybody, and they crushed it in the transfer portal. That, you add those things together, and that's, that's preseason hype. But then college football journalists and social media are going to do that thing where they start talking about it too early, and by the start of the season, they're fully talking themselves into, could this team make the playoff? What they did to Miami last year and North Carolina the year before, and then they're going to come out and they're either going to suck or they're going to be a top 25 team, but we had already convinced ourselves that they were capable of the playoff, and it's going to be a letdown. So I'm just going to let everybody run their mouths about Florida State, and we will see. either way, not super happy to have to play them next year.
Not super happy we have to play them, but somewhat happy that we got them at home because otherwise the home schedule is Cincinnati at home will be cool, but then the other games we got UNC, which will be a big one, Louisville, Boston College. So that's a big game to be at Heinz Field. So I feel like North Shore should be rocking that weekend, and so I do enjoy that piece of it, even though they should be pretty tough. But it's brutal. It's a brutal schedule. I know a lot of people. There's been some complaining done in the
Bitching, if you
Pitt-
will.
some bitching, if you will, in the Pitt fan base about scheduling too hard. I like it. I want to have a higher win total next to our name at the end of the season, but some of these games, like Rhode Island in week 4, is just such a buzzkill. That game, we had West Virginia to open the season, and we have big games back to back, and then we have an FCS opponent in week 4. I'm glad they're kicking off with Wofford. There's the hype of the season starting. It's still fun. Go down there, kick their heads off, and then after that, every game is pretty exciting. I feel like the MAC opponents, not to disrespect MACtion, but I mean Western Michigan coming in and beating you is not great either. So I appreciate that every game after that first one feels like it really matters.
Yeah, I'm okay with the middle ground. I think Cincinnati was looking like a very worrisome game a year or two ago, but I guess we caught a break with Fickle leaving town just in time. So if we can find like a middle tier out of conference opponent that go along with West Virginia, I think that'd be the right way to make the schedule. So it's not too lame, but not too daunting either. Like we're not going out and getting Oklahoma State. I don't see that happening anytime soon. But I agree. I'm all for just a little bit of extra juice.
I get where you guys are coming from in that is what is most fun.
Well, I'm usually the team, just give me the win. If we're playing a bowl game, I don't care if we play Bowling Green. I want the win. But when it comes to an overall schedule, I want to be a little excited 9 months out.
Right. And like I said, if we're talking about most fun, give me some helmet games coming into Heinz Field, But I think it's kind of been proven at this point as we wade even further into the playoff era that the way to go is cupcakes. You just shove your face full of cupcakes. Look at what Michigan did last year, and they made the playoff. They really only needed to beat Ohio State to make the playoff. And, and then the SEC does their whole thing of the penultimate week of the year. They all schedule like the Citadel. It's true. The Citadel plays 14 SEC teams in one weekend. Very impressive. That's what we value in our troops. But no, I get it. I want fun. I'm so pumped we're playing Cincinnati and West Virginia, teams that feel like rivals. But, as the playoff expands, I wouldn't mind a couple years where they just kind of lined the streets with pastries.
It's also happens to come in a year where we get Notre Dame as part of the ACC deal. So that I think pushes it over the edge a little bit, where it's like, and in another year we're probably scheduling. I think next year we might have Kent State or Toledo. I would have to look. Not next year, 2024. I would have to go check the schedule.
I think it's Kent.
Okay, so on a normal year, that is more of a cupcake game, but we just happen to line it up with a Notre Dame visit, or a visit to Notre Dame. So it's definitely a daunting schedule. It's a fun schedule, and I liked the Pitt players kind of chirping back at some fans who were complaining about the tough out of conference. Like, you guys aren't the ones who have to play. We're the ones who play. We're the ones out on the field. What are you scared of? So
Marcus Williams said that to Dokish, which is a great line. You don't.
Oh, both of them. They were both throwing it out there. So Mark Williams, MJ Devonshire, they're like, bring all the smoke. And I love that in players. And I get your point, David. It is the unfortunate truth is if you just load your schedule up with cupcakes and out of conference, that gives you the best chance to make the playoff, because despite the playoff committee, I think originally saying that they were going to look at strength of schedule, it very soon turned out to be strength of schedule only matters if you have the least amount of losses at the end of the year. So teams have kind of pivoted on that, but I'm all for
that's only an argument they use to keep Group of 5 schools out.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So it'll be fun. It'll definitely be interesting. It could go south quick, but I mean, what are we gonna do? We just got to play it now.
Yeah, one nice thing about it, and you're right, there is potential for it to go south quickly if Cincy is any semblance of a football program. We could be starting out potentially 2-2. Don't think I'm going to get on this early. Don't think we're losing to West Virginia. They have an absolute murderer's row of a schedule.
Now that is a tough schedule.
Yeah, that is bad.
I almost feel bad for West Virginia. That's how bad it is.
The Big 12 was very good last year, and then they added multiple good Group of 5 schools, when Texas and Oklahoma announced that they were leaving, but Texas and Oklahoma are still stuck there for a couple more years. So it's a really even and tough conference, and West Virginia is kind of screwed. But all that to say, well, not all that to say, we needed to get our shots in on them. But all that to say, we do have a tough way of things the first 4 weeks. But I am happy again to see that a lot of our home... Actually, now that I was going to say a lot of our home games are early in the year, so we get the warmth. 3 of our first 4 are at home, but then it seems pretty one off and one on. But we get to enjoy the sun a little bit that first month.
The 5 of the first 6 last year were at home.
Mm-hmm.
And not going to lie, it was kind of brutal. Brutal in terms of
our bodies.
Fatigue, every week. I was going through some fatigue, like I was actually playing in the games. So I appreciate that it's broken up a little more. I love the good weather tailgates, but I also like some character in the tailgates. I like tailgating in the snow. I like bundling up and throwing some hand warmers in the gloves and in the shoes. So I can appreciate that as well. Also, bringing back the Thursday night on North Shore. Thursday night always ends up being kind of fun. We've got Boston College there. I know we've had that was typically the UNC slot, but now we've got BC coming, and it's always fun to take a half day at work and then a little Thursday on the North Shore.
Yeah, I know a lot of people complain about those Thursday nights because people who are more established than us and also have children, they cannot just take off a day and a half of work for a football game and then, roll out of bed hungover on Friday. They have responsibility. But for people our age, it's fun. That UNC game was that overtime game in the rain. That was a blast, even given the conditions.
So before we talk about our ACC destinations, we're going to dive into those. What do we think of the neutral site game? I don't think any of us saw this coming, and I haven't seen any rumors of a neutral site game anywhere, let alone Syracuse and New York City. Pretty cool.
Yeah, I feel like usually that's something that gets leaked beforehand, and then it was just announced last week. So I think that is the ideal situation for a game that was going to be at Syracuse. So instead of going to the Carrier Dome, we just play them at a neutral field. New York, a place that has a lot of Pitt alumni, and then it makes people who aren't Pitt or Syracuse fans somewhat interested in the game. So I think it's a pretty nice get for Pitt's brand. It's instead of having to play in the Pinstripe Bowl to play in Yankee Stadium, you just have a random regular season game played up there. So I think it's pretty cool.
For the last 14 years of my life, I think I've considered going to Syracuse for an away game, and I just never have, just because it's like, maybe another year.
Don't.
And it's always late in the year. It's like, well, they got 17 inches of snow yesterday, so it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I went to Syracuse on a college visit, and on the car ride home, I was like, yeah, no, I'm not going here. There's simply no way you're going to get me to live here for 4 years. So I would not recommend that 6-hour road trip into the North from Game of Thrones. So that's why I do like, in some regards, this decision and this outcome for Pitt, because this turns arguably the least desirable destination into, oh, we can go to New York City for a weekend, watch Pitt football, and then do New York tourist things. However, I'd be remiss if I didn't say it sucks for the players because, how bad are the field conditions when we try to play on converted baseball fields? The Fenway Bowl and the Pinstripe Bowl always look miserable. People slipping all over the place, the field not well kept. So that sucks.
And for the fans, there's always those people that are weirdly like 50 yards away from the sideline just because of how they have to weirdly angle the field.
Yeah, the triangulating it or whatever. But, good on Narduzzi. He now has a game that he has an excuse to turn into a rock fight. Like, there's a puddle of mud in the middle of the field. Looks like we're going to have to run it 40 times.
I'd be pretty upset if Pitt lost a home game. If Syracuse fans have a gripe here, I'd be pretty upset if Pitt lost a home game to be played on a neutral field. Not that we would play ours at PNC Park or anything, although that would be objectively hilarious if they just decided to play in a baseball stadium that's like
next door,
500 yards away, and you use all the same parking lots for. But yeah, tough break for Syracuse, a team that probably already had his hands full with Pitt coming to town.
Oh yeah,
but hey, tough shit.
So Squid, you were saying you wanna go to NYC for that one. I think we're all in general agreement that trip to South Bend is looking a little tantalizing for a boys' road trip. Are there any other on the schedule that you think look interesting? I say very segue-ly.
Morgantown seems like hell, but I feel like it's kind of an obligation. Yeah,
that's just pick up your lunchbox, your lunch pail, get on 79, go do your job, go to the game, get home safely.
Yeah. I'll be watching my drinking, and there's going to be a buddy system when it comes to going to the bathroom, but I feel like we should be in attendance. It's only right. But so, as the schedule release came out and we began evaluating dates and locations, it kind of got me thinking, what are the most desirable ACC road trip destinations? And I figured, this would make for a good Mount Washington. If we drafted the best ACC destinations plus Notre Dame, I think they should count.
Yeah,
for the practice. And I also kind of had a thought for a little bit of a wager that we could put on it to make it a little bit more competitive.
I don't like this.
Go on.
So there's this little film that is due to hit theaters. Actually hit theaters this past Friday with a couple living legends, Jane Fonda, Sally Field, Rita Moreno, and Lily Tomlin. It's called 80 for Brady. And I don't know if you guys saw the adverts for this movie, but it looks pretty rough. I don't know who the target audience is. It's the story of 4 80-year-old women going on a road trip to watch Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. But I think, because it is a sports movie, it'd be wrong of us to not cover it as the journalists we are. So I think whoever loses by vote on this Mount Washington should go see that movie for the Loyal Sons and then present a little movie review for us on the next episode.
This is such a ridiculous idea for a movie.
Yes.
Is this... I was going to ask, is this based on a true story? But even if it was, it's just 4 old ladies going to the Super Bowl.
Probably not that interesting. Are you sure you don't actually want to see this and this is your excuse to go to the theaters to watch
David's
it?
Throwing it.
He's gonna
pick one, Syracuse. Pick 2. The Ninth Circle of Hell. No, I just think I do not want to see this movie. I'd like to go on the record. But I do think it would raise the stakes a little bit. We haven't had a Mount Washington in a while. I just want to put that competitive spirit back in us. Who knows? These 4 actresses are
I'm looking at the
legends
cast
of their
right
day.
now. I'm looking at the cast right now. Guy Fieri as himself. Squid might throw this Mount Washington.
Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski. Ooh, Billy Porter. There's a Pittsburgh connection.
Okay, I'm in.
All right. So
now this one actually matters. We have to think about how we want to order our picks, because we usually just don't really care that much. And
right.
No,
up with the order,
tradition is
there's
tradition.
something on the line.
Tradition is tradition. We will decide right now, as we always do.
I will offer to have last pick of the slot that I want. 1, because I came up with this, and 2, because my current job, I'm leaving on Monday. I then have 2 weeks until my new job starts, so I have an abundance of time to go see 80 for Brady, maybe see it 2 or 3 times, and then really, vet out my thoughts and put together a very cohesive and succinct report. So I will volunteer to have the last pick.
Noble of you.
Even though I think the top 2, like there's a very clear top 2 and then a massive drop off in terms of the destinations.
Are we sure you're not? He might be positioning himself.
I promise I am not.
Okay, Squid. How do we decide?
I have a 50-cent piece. I can flip it.
Go for it.
All right. JFK is heads, ironically. And then this building. Oh, Independence Hall. Independence Hall is tails. Squid, you are the away team. Call it in the air.
Give me JFK.
Ooh, it's Independence Hall. Dylan?
I'll take the second pick.
All right, Squid, kick us off.
Well, I think this is the clear number 1 pick. The only reason I think it might not be super clear is because the stadium atmosphere sucks. It's Miami. Taking Miami number 1 overall.
Interesting.
That is an interesting choice. Because it's going to go... a lot can go into this. Miami is obviously like the coolest destination on the board, but what are you going on a college football trip for? The stadium experience, the college campus, the city itself? Do you want to see the coolest traditions? So an interesting strategy there, Squid. I think you left my top 2 on the board.
Well, here's my justification. Imagine going down last year, late in the year, you escape the cold, you're in Miami, you watch Pitt just goon dust the Hurricanes, go out in the town of Miami one last night, and then fly back, sleep tight.
Yeah, interesting. It was so enticing to you that you didn't go. Okay.
It's like $800.
Exactly.
Well, there you go. You're really
and the game sucked. You're
selling your number 1 overall pick here. I think we probably have the same top 2, David, and I think it's a coin flip, but I'm going to go with the one that we're actually going to go to this year, Notre Dame in South Bend. Is that not one of your top 2? No? Wow. Okay. Well, for all the reasons you just stated, traditions, big name, big brand, college football. I understand it's in South Bend, and everyone always, I don't want to go to South Bend. I went to Pitt Notre Dame when I was a junior in high school, and maybe part of it was the first time I was really on a college campus, but I hate Notre Dame. I despise the program, everything about it. And I love the mock, everything they stand for. But I mean, it's Notre Dame is a huge brand. Touchdown Jesus is cool to go see. Like, it's something that you do want to go do as a college football fan. In my opinion, you got to go do it once. No. And it's something you got to check out.
Yeah, this was absolutely, I think, like a first rounder. Because Notre Dame, I mean, it's Notre Dame. You're going for the experience, the atmosphere,
Right.
but I've also been to Notre Dame twice and was unimpressed by the campus. And though the stadium was cool, it had wooden bleachers at the time, and I got like a bunch of butt splinters. Also, a lot of Catholic dogma, and you can either be really into that or not really into that, and that impacts things. But no, I definitely get where you're coming from.
I heard that the Lene Kakua statue is like actually a cool thing to see.
Zing. All right, David. I think I
Christ.
know what direction you're going now. I thought that would have been in your top 2, but I feel like I know what direction you're going to be going in.
Yeah. So in no particular order.
No, give us an order.
I actually really struggled with the order.
You have to give me an order so I can put it in the graphic.
Fair. Give me Florida State first, Tallahassee, Florida. Florida State is an all-time helmet program. They went on that ridiculous run for like 20 years under Bowden. As far as college campuses, probably one of the coolest and most fun schools in America. Massive party school. And I mean, for personal reasons, my sister-in-law went there, and I would have my own tour guide when I drag her and her Pitt alum husband along, because I'm sure they want to show their kids, it's a very Pitt heavy household, and my sister-in-law probably needs to fight back a little bit more. But I've just heard the most incredible things about the campus, the people, the party scene, and then you get to watch a good Florida State team play at Florida State. You get to watch the Seminole come out with the flaming spear.
Whoa. We did not specify what Florida State team we are going to see.
Okay, fine. Call it an average Florida State team. You still get to go and watch one of the coolest traditions in college football, which is the member of the Seminole tribe coming out with the flaming spear on the horse. Just a really cool environment, and it would be a great place to get hammered. And then that was 1A for me. 1B is Clemson.
Yeah.
Talk about like another unbelievable atmosphere, unbelievable college town, unbelievable tradition as far as the coolest entrance in college football, other than another one on this list. But Howard's Rock, all that. And though, we aren't saying I couldn't claim a good Florida State team this year, it's going to be a good Clemson team every year. So you're going to see some future NFL guys playing ball. And it's the closest thing we have to like an SEC atmosphere, an SEC college town, in the ACC. So that was an easy 1 and 2 for me. I can't believe you guys let me get away with it.
Both those trips are they take a little bit of a bump because you have to fly to Tallahassee, and Clemson. Right. I'm probably not. I mean, we could man down a drive if we really needed to, but no, both a little far. But absolutely would love to go to games in both places.
And to that, I would say get your bread up.
Maybe if people start buying some more Roback stuff using our code, throw that little ticker down there.
Yeah. There we go.
Shameless plug.
There we go.
Maybe a little shameful. Okay, yeah. You kind of blew our heads off with that in the 3 and 4 spot. I was thinking Notre Dame and Clemson. Florida State was right behind, so that's a big one. So
Dylan, that Notre Dame pick might end up being like Will Levis in this year's draft.
All right, Mr.
Spare me, Miami.
Yeah, like what?
You and your 20 closest friends, the only attendees in the stadium.
All right, attendance state.
Okay,
carry on.
That first round third got a little contentious here, but I'm gonna go, and between a couple places that we've been, I'm gonna go Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech Lane Stadium's awesome. When we went, it just happened to be probably the worst game we could have possibly gone to. In the rain, 28-0 loss. Squid, we've told this story, but as we're walking out of the stadium, trying to call a lift, unsuccessfully calling a lift, just hearing over the PA system, Paris Ford ejected for targeting, or number 12 ejected for targeting, and we're like, this is
Even
a
better.
sick joke. It was like comedic timing was at an all-time high. Then couldn't get a lift, had to walk like a mile and a half in the rain to the nearest sports bar. Whatever
Really
we
selling
could
your
find.
pick.
Yeah, once again selling my pick here. But to bring it all back here, all that happened, and that was one of the most fun trips I've been on. In my, like, obviously Pitt ruined it by losing, which they happen to do on some of these trips. But everything up until then, it was electric. We went to a few different places. Sharky's comes to mind. Sharky's was one of the spots we went to. Played a 11-on-11 pickup football game. It was like 2 plays with a beer can against some Virginia Tech kids. So that was fun. They have a fun little tailgate set up down there, and Lane Stadium. When Enter Sandman is worth like every sec. Like, you could just leave the stadium after Enter Sandman. I hate that Pitt will never have anything as cool as Enter Sandman for the entrance. But
Talking
it's
shit on
electric.
Neil Diamond.
But that just, yeah, the Enter Sandman is something you have to experience as a fan.
I hear the food down there is insane too. I don't know if you guys were just stopping at like Taco Bell.
I think we were still
like,
in the. I think we were still in the
standard
phase
issue.
of just like get cheap pizza, McDonald's.
I mean, it rained literally the whole trip, so we kind of just hunkered down at the Airbnb and ate and drank
we
as
also
much
had
as we physically could.
Mama Lisa, our Uber driver, she's like a cult hero down there. She just has her whole like minivan decked out in Hokie stuff, like all on the outside. She's dressed head to toe in Virginia Tech gear. And then she also gave us her number, and we called her at like 3 a.m. when we couldn't get an Uber. And sure enough, she was there picking us up and packing like 10 of us into her minivan. So that's another plus, Mama Lisa.
Yeah, that wouldn't be on the top of my list just because of the poor experience last time. We left at like 2 a.m. and arrived back in Pittsburgh at the crack of dawn. So, anyway, my picks. I'll go Louisville next. I thought that was a very quality trip we went on last year. Quick
Once
drive.
Again, Pitt's performance kind of ruined it, but
yeah, I had this conversation literally 2 days ago. Somebody was like, "Yeah, it was real cool city, but that was probably the worst quality of game I could have seen." I love the tailgate scene, really cool at Louisville.
Yeah,
the stadium itself, very cool.
Yeah, I want to steal that stadium and put it in Oakland and paint the seats royal blue.
Not yellow? Okay. Also, the downtown area had a lot to do. So if you're one of those people that want to actually experience things on these trips, there's all kinds of museums, Louisville Slugger Museum, the Muhammad Ali Museum.
Yeah.
Luke Combs is in town. I thought that we met him, but it was just a different fat guy with a beard who was lying for attention.
Good on that guy, to be honest.
Yeah.
A lot of bourbon if you're into that.
Yeah. Went to a bourbon tasting, and that was pretty cool.
My next
4th
pick,
Street Live.
Yeah. All kinds of fun. So great value pick by me in round 2. My next pick is going to be Virginia. Never been there.
Folklore.
A lot of folklore, especially if you have like a week 7, 8 game, like the prime time of the trees changing.
Folklore means foliage. That is a very inside joke. I'd like to remind you guys.
See, I forgot it was an inside joke. It's just part of the vocabulary nowadays. But everyone says it's like
shout out Christian Lejeune.
One of the nicest campuses in the country.
It was designed by Thomas Jefferson.
That's about all I got.
It is. No, you're right. It's supposed to be like the most beautiful campus, bar none, in America.
So we'd have a good time in Virginia. I know we considered that for a while. It'll be on the list within the next couple of years for sure.
The only thing is Virginia students are kind of dweebs, and if you refer to it as a campus, I think they get like really pissy. They call it a grounds, which is the most nauseating thing I've ever heard in my life.
I would go out of my way to say campus as much as I could that
Tattoo
weekend.
it on my forehead when we're down there.
Okay, back to me here. I feel like the cream of the crop's kind of been knocked out, but there's one more on here that has been on my list and just haven't managed to make it there. Chapel Hill, North Carolina. I really want to get down there. I've heard nothing but great things about the campus, and also I would absolutely, as like, basketball fan, like diehard basketball guy, hoops junkie, would definitely sneak by the arena, check out some of the. Michael Jordan was a bum. We all know that, but
Terrible.
I would definitely want to check out some of the history around basketball team and all that. So
You could probably hitch a
Chapel Hill.
ride down with a few dudes from Cranberry for their
Right.
yearly trip, so save on gas money.
Yeah. Man, things are thinning out something fierce. Now I'm paying for my slot.
I feel like it's starting to turn into like warm weather.
Yeah, so there's 6 left, and there's I think 3 you could convince me to go to, and then 3 that you could comp my flight, my tickets, my meals. Like, it would not be worth leaving the city of Pittsburgh to go. So I think an easy one. I'd go to Raleigh for NC State.
Yeah.
North Carolina is just kind of like a cool place. It already was, and I think it's just becoming cooler by the day. It's kind of the East Coast version of Colorado, where everyone realized it's just like a sweet, very beautiful, very young people place, and now it's just exploding. So I'm gonna go double on North Carolina and also call in Winston Salem for Wake Forest. Just beautiful drive. 2 towns that I understand are pretty fun. Wake Forest is decent, is now like a decent program. That one I want to go to a lot less because it's a really small school, and I've never heard anything big about the atmosphere at those games. But NC State is a athletics school. You know, they are fun, they are competitive, they have a fan base. And you know, I want to go somewhere warm like North Carolina. I'm sure there'd be good food there because it is south of the Mason-Dixon line, and we can just make that assumption.
Insufferable fans.
Yeah, well, we're insufferable too, and we can beat them at their own game.
I think NC State could be sneaky fun.
Yeah,
if we get them on the schedule down there in Raleigh. Yeah, there's not much left here. I'm gonna pick warm weather. I'm gonna go Duke. Looking at Georgia Tech, Atlanta could be enticing. I know you guys didn't exactly enjoy your Atlanta trip for the Peach Bowl. I think you caught a tough time to go there, but I'm gonna go Duke. A lot of the same reasons as Chapel Hill. Heard great things about the campus. Haven't been there. Same thing. Would love to check out Cameron Indoor while I was down there. Some of the history there. Duke football games don't seem very fun, but I feel like I could probably get a ticket for like $30 and sit right on the 50-yard line. So I'm going to go Duke there because lack of other options.
And I think this is pretty easy. I'm going Georgia Tech. It's in an actual city with a lot to do, and it isn't Syracuse or Boston College.
Yeah. I think it was an obvious last 2 remaining. Syracuse is miserable, and the Carrier Dome is a piece of shit, and so is their football team. And then you could make the argument for going to Boston. I've been to Boston 3 times, and it has underwhelmed me every single time. I think it's very expensive, and the thing that they say about mass holes is, as far as stereotypes go, pretty spot on. So I'm not surprised that the 2 coldest, bleakest locations in the conference are left on the board.
Yeah. Also, Georgia Tech has a low-key, a kind of cool stadium.
Mhm.
It's just within the city. I don't imagine that anybody goes to those games. So, like Dylan said, just hunker down at midfield, sit behind the bench, and listen to Narduzzi stream his guts out.
So, quick review, all four. So, who are Squids for?
I had Miami, Virginia, Louisville, Georgia Tech.
Okay, I'm Notre Dame, Virginia Tech, UNC, and Duke.
And I got Florida State, Clemson, NC State, and Wake Forest.
Gotcha. A lot of Southern feel in your picks, David.
Yeah, I really, really like comfort food.
I like it. Well, we'll put out a graphic for this, let some people vote, and figure out who's going to go see 80 for Brady.
This segment was brought to you by 80 for Brady, in theaters now. I feel like I have to disclaim that it was not actually for legal reasons. Anyway, basketball. Hey, Panther Nation. Have you ever crashed your spin scooter going down Cardiac Hill? Or wiped out on an icy sidewalk in South Oakland? Have you ever been hit by a bus crossing Forbes Avenue? Well, you may not have to pay that hospital bill on your own. If you're hurt in an accident, pick up the phone and call Guido at Guerrera Law. Guido Guerrera is a University of Pittsburgh Law School grad, Pitt football superfan, and experienced personal injury attorney who's licensed in Pennsylvania and Ohio. And it is 100% free to call him for consultation on your personal injury case. So the next time you get rear-ended in Oakland rush hour traffic, or if you fall down the stairs at Peters, call Guido. All joking aside, Oakland and the world can be a very dangerous place. If you need legal help, talk to Guido. He'll treat you like a fellow Pitt fan and never like a number. 412-229-7757 is the number to call. That's 412-229-7757 to call Guido. You can also contact Guerrera Law at guerreralaw.com. That's Gurrera. Call Guido today.
So, it's time to talk some hoops here, Pitt hoops. Your Pitt basketball Panthers are currently sitting in second place in the ACC standings right now.
Mm-hmm.
The team that was picked to finish 14th in the preseason poll by the media, Jeff Cable's Panthers are currently sitting in second behind only Clemson. Fellas, not much has happened. There hasn't been another game since last time. We did get some help from Virginia Tech with their big win over UVA. With the same record, Pitt now has the tiebreaker over them with the head-to-head. But Pitt's in the middle of a little ACC title run right now. It's February, and we're talking about
said
Pitt.
It out loud.
It's February, and we're talking about Pitt maybe winning an ACC regular season title.
Do you get
this
rings
feels
for
like
that?
the end of.
I'd make rings for it. I'd hang a banner. Would you hang a banner?
I was actually looking last
They
time.
have a regular season title banner up there, don't they? Just add another 2022, 2023 to it.
Hang the banner.
Hang the banner.
If providing we do the thing.
Please hang the banner.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't believe it, but I'm sitting here looking at Clemson's remaining schedule to see like how many tough games they have left, to see how many they might drop and what it would take for us to stay at the top. So the fact we're going to hear is pretty sweet.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy where Pitt's sitting. I think before the season, we would have said if they finish in the top half of the ACC, that's a big step in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
But things have changed over the last few months. Pitt's good again, and we're enjoying every step of it. They've got 2 games coming up this week against Louisville and Florida State. I believe we've had this exact conversation before. It was an episode before a week where they had Louisville and Florida State on the schedule. And we said, just beat these 2 teams who have the worst records in the ACC, and we're in good shape. Last time it didn't exactly go our way. We have Louisville at home on Tuesday. Then we go down to Florida State Saturday, noon game. I said it before about these bad losses. These are 2 games that Pitt simply cannot lose. with the way the ACC is shaking out, with the way the bubble is shaking out. Pitt currently sitting around 9-10 seed in most plays, firmly in, as opposed to being one of those last four in, maybe a team who has to play in a playing game. I think this is a game. This is a week where please just take care of business against these two bad teams. You can stomach a loss maybe on the road to Virginia Tech, Miami, one of these tougher road games. You can't drop another to a quadrant 4 team.
No. But can I acknowledge how cool it is to be able to move the goalposts in a positive way? Like you said, we would have been happy with just like a top half finish, but we have now in the last week moved the goalposts from making the tournament, because a lot of the projections are showing us firming up our position in it, to an ACC regular season title. And I just want to call that out so that we can acknowledge how cool that is.
I was watching Big East Championship games on YouTube over the weekend. So I'm ready.
I'm so ready. I'm loving this. Pitt basketball being good is so fun. I almost forgot how fun, because they haven't been good since we've been adults, really. Like I've been thinking about what are we going to do if Pitt's playing in like an ACC semifinal game on a Friday night. And I'm like, well, before
we won't have school in the morning.
Before it was like, oh, well, after my basketball practice, or I'm probably just watching in the living room or one of my friends' basements. But now we have to start thinking about where we'll spend our night, what bar we're gonna watch at, how are we gonna do a watch party for this? Like, this is fun. This is a lot of fun. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. Please win these 2 games this week. We're not going to talk too much more hoops because they haven't played since the last time we talked about the UNC game. But we are going to talk hoops with a Pitt legend.
Absolute Pitt legend. Chevy Troutman joining the show. Great interview with him coming up. I think we had this expectation going into it that it would just kind of be playing the hits, and we'd play a game of men would rather sit around and name random athletes than go to therapy. And we'd just ask him questions that were essentially, remember Julius Page?
How cool was it playing with Brandon Knight?
Remember Chris Taft? But it kind of went a totally different direction. He had a lot of really, really valuable insight on what it means to be a student athlete, and kind of the way that college basketball has changed since some of the opportunities that he wishes that he had back then, and kind of just his general insights on the way since the early 2000s, college sports are now driven by the athlete a lot more, as opposed to, when it was just the NCAA and the coaches making millions made all the calls and you just kind of had to sit there and take it. So I'll shut up now and let Chevy do the talking, but really, really thankful he came onto the show, and enjoy.
Welcome to the show. Today we've got Pitt basketball legend Chevy Troutman joining us today. Chevy, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It's an honor to have you. We were talking a little bit before we started recording. Me and David were saying how you were part of the Pitt teams that really made us fall in love with basketball, not to make you feel old, but like when we were 7-8 years old.
Yeah. It's funny because before my group came here, a few of us, we got together and we had a little chat right before we signed it. We was like, if we come to a school, we're gonna win, and it doesn't matter, what school it was. It just so happens to be Pitt.
Well, so with some of those guys you came to Pitt with, you absolutely did win. At the Pete last Saturday against Miami, we actually honored the 20th anniversary of that 2003 Big East Championship team. What was it like to be back in the Pete, a packed house, and just to kind of relive that first Big East Championship team?
It was really nice. Pitt has had our little time where we was, smacking on people and it was normal for everyone. And then we had our little downtime, but you know, the staff up there right now is like, putting it together, and the tradition that we started back then is coming back. And it was nice. It was nice that they finally started doing some traditional stuff to recognize some of the players that came through that had a big impact on building the foundation, what they're starting to, keep on recognizing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they owe your guys' group everything. I mean, the the Peterson Event Center was built on your backs, and this entire program, we owe everything to you guys. Do you still get to stay close with some of the guys from that team?
Oh yeah. I mean, time has passed, life has gone on, but yeah, we still have mostly open airways with a lot of the guys. Uh, we we always talk about, we seen this image of the gym and what it was supposed to do for the players. Like, that's what brought us here that long ago, and to see it come into light for the newer kids, it's like, it's nice and sad because, like, they're bearing all the fruits of the and they, with the new rules and stuff, they have a little bit more control nowadays than we did back then with their careers.
Yeah, NIL's given them a little bit of leverage, to make their own decisions. If NIL was around in 2003, what would have been the ideal NIL setup for Chevy Troutman? What local business would you want to be, shelling for?
Actually, I don't know, but I know back then there wasn't any influencers like, on Instagram and
Right.
all this social media stuff. I know back then, before all of that, like, I wasn't an influencer, but I was very visible and recognized around. So, like, honestly, I don't know if I probably wouldn't have had to play basketball if I was back when there was NIL. NIL? It's NIL,
Yeah, yeah.
name, likeness, and image, or image and likeness. Yeah, I honestly don't think that I would have had to play basketball, to be straight up.
You think you could have been an Instagram influencer?
I I would have had some kind of leverage for sure, and I was very approachable. I love socializing. I love being around the events. I didn't mind going places and doing all that kind of stuff. It was easy for me back then.
Yeah, I imagine being 6'8" and personable is kind of a cheat code in life in general.
Yeah, I wish I was 6'8", like six. I would say somebody measured me like a couple weeks ago. I was like, I'm easily like 6'4" and some change, but they measured me with a tape measure with no shoes on, and they measured me at 6'6". So I'm gonna start saying I'm 6'6" now.
What did they list you at back in the day? Because you were playing the Big East playing amongst the trees. I know they had to bump you up an inch or two.
No, it was six. I think it was 6'7", 6'7" with my basketball shoes on. It wasn't fun. I was never a 5. I'm gonna say that out there. I had way more to offer than showing you guys how to make a layup and bang with those big. It was not fun, and I don't know how.
Wikipedia has you at 6'8", by the way. So
I know.
I think you should run with that.
That's fake news.
So obviously, kids today, they have some other influences around them, the NIL helping them make their college choices, but that wasn't really around back when you were getting recruited. What was it that drew you to Pitt over here to Oakland out of Williamsport High School?
It was mainly family. We grew up in, family type, narrative, like, oh, family over everything. But I mean, as you get older and stuff, sometimes, family, some of your close friends or something like that, you even met before. Like, I know most of my very, very dear people I consider family are international. So, I mean, it's a little bit different for everyone, but in my experience, and nowadays, like, it's hard to find those connections that are like the old school stuff.
So you were
Yeah.
able to find that when you came to Pitt and check the place out?
I would say on that picking the school, it was more or less I didn't want to go far from my family, you know.
Gotcha.
So like Penn State would be the optimal choice for my selfish city that I come from. They would have wanted me to go to Penn State because it's close. And or down towards Philly. So because I knew that, I just had to go the opposite route of everyone else. That's just how I always rolled. They say you can't go there or play there. I mean, most of the NCAA, they thought that I was a Atlantic 10 player, and when I heard that, I was just like, I gotta prove them wrong. I'm not going A10. I almost went to Duquesne, but then Dap was there. He was the coach recruiting me, and after I went there, I got another message from someone on the AU scene and said that I could never play in the Big East, and then that was one of the kickers. I wanted to go to Conference USA because of Cincinnati and Bob Huggins. I wanted to go play in that kind of environment, but it was 7 hours away, and that was like my threshold, of
That's
how
far,
far.
yeah.
Yeah, from Williamsport. I think it was 7 hours. I wanted to be able to get in the car and be back home in like 4 hours, but I didn't even have a car, and I don't even know why that was
So the dude that told you that you could never play in the Big East, did you ever check back in on him when you were first team All Big East in 2005?
No, I didn't. No, I actually didn't. I haven't heard from him. And I mean, they were like AU guys back then, and I think maybe they was a little bit more unregulated, so could have been personal agendas. And
Yeah.
back in the day, the players didn't have no say, no control. Like they went to school, and then they either the person that told them if they came there, they was going to play all the minutes. They get there, and now what can they do? They just gotta try not to think about it too much and go through the trenches, and hopefully you get some time on the court.
Well, that brings up another difference with today's game. Back in your day when you were playing, a lot of the best programs, especially Pitt, they were built off 4-year guys who were at Pitt. Like you said, if you don't play right away, you couldn't transfer right away, or else you're sitting out a year. So how do you think from then to now, with how the transfer portal is, how different do you feel like college basketball is because of the transfer portal? It feels like it's almost a completely different game, because if you get on campus and you're not getting PT right off the jump, well, let me just put my name in the portal and find somewhere else.
Yeah. I mean, that's important because then players get to actually play, or they get a chance to. I mean, it's good. It's good and bad, me saying this, but like the players actually have some leverage, with their careers, and what if someone else is going to waste their career or waste their time or waste their efforts, like they can't do that now with this new rules. And I'm sure if we had this back in the day, Pitt would have probably been broken up back then. And I'm not saying it would have. I'm just saying that it's a possibility because,
Right.
when you're playing, when you're on a team and you're not, and one of the uppers, like coaches or management or whoever's in charge, is telling you, hey, you're going to play, just wait your time, and you're not playing. And then a game goes by, you didn't get in the game, or you got in garbage time. You're not performing. You can't get a chance to perform. There's not enough time to show anything special. Like, those players would have probably tested the waters.
Yeah, it's definitely.
I know I had those moments because, if you're in practice and you're doing amazing and you don't get in the game, like it plays tricks on a serious athlete when they're like, they're in a difficult spot and they're pouring all of their energy into this, trying to be a quality product for the school.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, they have school on top of that. So like, I mean, that candle's getting burnt at both ends, and there's hardly any time for rest or, any of that stuff. I don't know how it is today, but that's how it was back then.
Yeah, it's a bit of give and take, and it's great that the kids who burn the candle at both ends, but see nothing for it in terms of an on the court product, get the opportunity to look around in the portal, and they have a lot more autonomy that's very new to the collegiate level. There's also the trade-off. Like, we would have never seen those great Pitt teams in the early 2000s where there was so much senior leadership and guys were able to stick around and develop for 4 years, if guys were able to take off after not seeing the court on one. So it's there's a give and take to it.
But sometimes the casual user or the casual watcher sometimes forget what the athlete's there for. Some athletes are there for their education. Some of them are like, I'm only here for sports. I was one of the guys that was I knew before I was coming to college that I could have played pro basketball and made more financial, like I could have made more money and even probably went that route and came back to America after 4 or 5 years of intensive training in the European market to come back home to play, professional basketball here. Like, it depends on the mindset, of the players.
Yeah, there's definitely no shortage of avenues for young basketball players to take their career after high school.
Yeah. So some people are career driven, and some people are money driven. I come from a upbringing where there was no financial support, so it was not easy to come through college with the little bit of money that they gave us, even though they gave us a college scholarship. I mean, honestly, after going through college, I mean, my college scholarship wasn't nothing but a college experience around the kids that were there, and showing us the institution and how big organizations can run. I can't say that other than the networking, the visibility, and being able to perform on the court a few years, not my whole time. Like, I only played seriously, I could have played more minutes than I did at Pitt, but because of the structure, I don't think, and I'm sure a lot of players don't feel that they maximize their potential while they was in college.
Interesting. So
Yeah,
you think
deep.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So was there ever any thought for you while you were at Pitt, like maybe after your second year, after you started playing a little more, was there ever any thought where like, I'm going to get out of here and go play overseas and start making some money?
I'm a loyal player. I'm a team person. I've been through a lot before I went to college, the dynamics and the demographic that I come from. But it did cross my mind, but I'm too loyal of a person to, just, do something like that without a little bit of coaching. And we're young back then. We still needed guidance. We still needed structure. I mean, I still enjoyed the college experience. I would never trade it. Maybe I would trade it in hindsight, but as of now, what I did for this help do for the school, the appreciation that they show, it gives a different sense in hindsight. But in my early years of coming through school, if the name, player, and likeness, this NIL thing was there, easily I would have went for the money and grabbed it, because I knew that I was going to be a pro somehow, some way anyways, before I came to Pitt.
Well, we're very happy we got you here instead. Would have loved for you to get to squeeze a couple, more bucks out of your late teenage years, but we as Pitt fans are very happy that we had Chevy Troutman here, winning rings.
I feel that the city embraced me enough to keep me here even after, after college, because I know a lot of people when they come to college, they don't stay there. They go back to their locals. I was pulled to go back to live in different places after, but you know, the loyalty to the infant part of recognizing the former players that the basketball side of everything had back then, it did pull me because it was somebody had to start it. You know, I'm not going to say I was the only one, but I definitely was a big visual every year after I left back in the gym. I practiced up in the weight room every year. They always accepted me. I got my contracts sent to, I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, but my contracts, I printed them out up there in the media relations. They helped me make sure that I was all signed up and ready to go back overseas. But yeah, they embraced it. But now the tradition looks like it's like, say for instance, like big institutions that always had basketball tradition. You know, especially with this last event that they did it better than the last one, and the last one was better than this. So they keep on upgrading these events for the players, the former players. They're, easily they're going to have a nice pedigree of people returning, familiar faces. They'll be able to, you know, say some names and like people like you and younger, and in the middle part between you and I, like people will always remember. And it's a good moment for most of the people. It's crazy. It's crazy what the image that you guys have us in, or the light that you guys have us in, because sometimes you get lost, you don't feel it, you know, and when you get recognized, it's like, wow, I did something good, you know.
Yeah, and I think part of the reason that, you know, your era is so revered, and you know, your card still swipes, you know, at the Peterson is because Pitt basketball for the last 20 years has been the de facto pro basketball team in the city of Pittsburgh. You know, we don't have an NBA team. We just have the Panthers. So everybody got on board. Was, you know, you've been able to get a lot of respect, you know, during your career and after your career because you guys were such a huge deal in the city. But was there added pressure on you when you were playing for Pitt, knowing, you know, how much the city relied on the Panthers from a basketball perspective?
No, not for me, because I was just out there hooping. I was out there just doing what they asked me to do. I wasn't out there trying to show that I have way more to show. I was out there just playing tough, hard-nosed basketball and all that kind of stuff. So like, I didn't really think about that, because again, there's another side to it. You guys see the, you know, the on the court stuff, but you know, the lives off the courts for a lot of players back then were, you know, it was kind of tough, you know, trying to just, you know, do what you're supposed to do, and survive on, you know, the finances that you really don't have, and you're trying to stretch them, and then you got class, and then you're like, oh, I can't pay my bills. My rent's gonna be a little bit short. Trying to figure out, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not making moves like in a bad way, but trying to just organize yourself so that you can stay a little bit sane. Because I know a lot of us, you know, was struggling.
You had too much going on to get blinded by the bright lights, so to speak.
Yeah. We was focused on basketball. We was just trying to win.
I think another reason the city rallied around Pitt basketball so much, and obviously being the marquee basketball team in the city didn't hurt, but you also kind of represented that Pittsburgh toughness that everyone refers to, you know, the steel mills, the blue collar. Do you feel like that was something that was a conscious thing where the coaches wanted to instill that, or was it solely like the players are just like, this is how we play?
So the coaches coach and the players play, and you can't change a player style. Like when you bring a player in, if he's not tough, you can't make him tough. You know, back then, I think my first, I remember coming in our freshman class, like, we came in as rookies, and it was tough for the older players to beat us in practice when we was like clicking and not like understanding like the dynamics of politics and all that kind of stuff, and like who's playing and why and this and that. And it's just like, you know, when we wasn't thinking about that kind of stuff, like, you know, our freshman class was really, really hard to beat just without, you know, just off of us coming in and being there. after a while, it started changing the dynamics. We didn't play as much together. Some people got to play more than others. Some had to redshirt. Some had to sit out just because they wasn't going to play. So like a lot of stuff changed. But during that time, a lot of the players learned that, hey, when I come to practice and that guy's there, he's going to be tough. I got to play or else I'm going to look bad. And then it just kind of turned into that over time. So, a lot of players had more to offer on the pretty side to show themselves to be real professionals, even on the NBA level. A lot of them didn't even get a chance to play pros, but they could have played pro, but because of what I guess they went through in college, it didn't pan out. I mean, I know I almost wasn't a pro after becoming honorable mention, third team all Big East, then nothing my senior year. I knew I was forced to come back that fifth year, that redshirt fifth year. And not to say I had to be a little bit selfish, but I had to be more aware if I was pro, because with the style of our game the year before, it didn't promote me to look like I was capable to be a pro after. And we didn't win anything major. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that year, I had to make a conscious effort to take more action upon myself being a senior, and not letting, other players or the style of our play dictate our play. Because our play dictated a lot of people's career because they didn't get to show anything. So they never got a chance. And I'm sure some of the players, when they look back, they probably feel like really strong. I was actually talking with somebody over the weekend, and players feel some type of way because they're there to play, not sit and watch. And when you're at this level, it's like a different mindset. It's like a different life. Like you see what you see. I hope y'all understand that.
No, yeah, especially the bit about Pitt's play style not really lending itself to guys being able to really be superstars. We actually last week we were talking to a Pitt journalist, Jim Hammett, and he mentioned how specifically about how Jamarius Burton on the team this year is kind of a playmaker, the likes of which we never had. Mostly because even the greatest Pitt teams were so even and so unselfish that it didn't really lend itself to a guy being a 25 point per game guy. And I could see how that might have trickled down to your pro prospects.
Well, that's probably one of the main, us being such a team oriented team. The only year that we probably could have really did damage is that Marquette year, when we did have we were solid. We was solid as probably any Pitt team other than maybe the Final Four team that they had. If we didn't have a mediocre second half, or if some guys probably didn't relax, or some guys, not going to say their name, didn't participate when we needed them the most, like we probably would have had more pros come out of the organization a little bit earlier than they started going to the NBA or even getting NBA shots or something. So yeah, we definitely didn't have that type of player back then because we was too unselfish inside of our system.
So looking at this year's team and how there's been a little bit of a resurgence, because Pitt's been down for a few years. There's no arguing that. Are there any players from this year's team that you look at and think like, yeah, that guy could have played with us?
Yeah. I mean, we didn't play we had a lot of athletes back then, high flyers, but our style of play didn't show none of that because we weren't always out in transition like every second or something. People weren't moving. We was pretty stagnant back in the day. We controlled the pace because we need to be inside of our offense. We had to control the pace because we had a slow offense. It wasn't an up pace team. I came from a basketball school that, loved to get up and down the court. We ran. I came to Pitt. I had to slow down and change my whole form. I gained freaking 25 pounds or 30 pounds when I came to Pitt, but I was more vertical, before I transitioned into the style. But we couldn't really showcase it really inside of the system.
So is there any one guy from this year's Pitt team that you would have liked to play with? A Jamarius Burton, a Blake Hinson, Greg Elliott?
Honestly, the way that they're playing up there, they all could have played on our team. They all would have contributed. They're athletic, they're fast, they're sure, they're strong with the ball. They would have been able to handle it. They actually probably are better than us, to be honest. They have some athletic fours, athletic fives that were comparable to us. And then it's a different game. Now the players are scientifically curated. You know what I mean? Like from training and all this. Like we didn't have that. We just I went in the room and I just did the workout as fast as I could in every rep possible, whatever they put on, and that was like shocking to them, but that was my style. I didn't know what else to do. We didn't have like a scientific graph that was like, hey, do it like this. I'm sure if I had a graph or some kind of science behind my workouts, like I'd have been 10 times more stronger, 10 times more athletic than I actually was. So these players that are up there right now are of high quality, and congrats to the coaching staff up there for keeping them together and keeping them there. And the weight room system too, the weight training, like all that stuff, like that's admirable.
That's really high praise.
Yeah. I mean, I watched them. I've been up there. I go up there often. In my later years, I mean, I'm not in the mix as much. I'm not hooping. So I don't go to the gym to work out. I don't go in the back gym to shoot. I do check in on them, and I do speak with the people that are there. And I'm not really that kind of guy that, I'm gonna say, if I say something, I'm not going to waste my breath. Like I will give praise when praise is due.
Love it. Well, we're winding down here, but me and David have probably the toughest question for you yet. We want your Mount Rushmore. We call it Mount Washington because it's a local Pittsburgh thing, but we want your Mount Rushmore of Pitt basketball players. So give us 4 names that you would put up on the mountain.
Oh my gosh.
I told you it was a tough one. Yeah.
I could be biased, right? I'll give you 5 people, but I could be biased. Okay, because I have something with these people. Okay. I would love to have played with Mr. Lane. I love to have played with Clancy. I'm gonna go very sideways this way. But Yuri from Pittsburgh was
Yuri Demetrius.
He didn't get his chance and he didn't get his shots when he needed to show best for the city. I'd say we got some tough one. Keith Benjamin was one of the best athletes I've ever seen come through at 17. Everything didn't pan out his way, but he was one of the high profile players. And I would say, and we came in and inadvertently we did. There's a lot of other players I could have easily said, but those was the ones on the top of my brain.
Yeah, for context, for anyone that wasn't around during this era, you played with Brandon Knight, Julius Page, Chris Taft, Carl Krauser, Aaron Gray, Antonio Graves, Yuri Demetrius, Jaron Brown, Levon Kendall, and Ronald Ramon during your time at Pittsburgh. So
Chris Taft is one of the not pleasure, but experience to like fight against in practice. He's by far one of the best big men to ever step on in a Pitt basketball game. I played in the summertime with Steve Adams. He was phenomenal. Also, when I first saw him as a freshman, phenomenal person. And I knew he was going to be a pro before. And we talked about it before his summer that he got here. Mark McCarroll is another one. Unbelievable talent. John DeGroat Ronald Ramon. I can spew all Levance Fields, Carl Krauser. He was freaking awesome too because he had the show. Yeah, the list goes on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Those are some amazing names. It was an amazing era for Pitt basketball. And I know we're all hoping that we can kind of reclaim them glory days. But Chevy, you were part of the foundation that built it all. Can't thank you enough for your time coming on with us. It was awesome for us. You know, you were one of our idols when we were younger.
Yeah,
Made us
this was
fall in
great.
love with basketball. So absolutely appreciate you coming on. And we'd love to do it again sometime.
Yeah, no problem. Like I said, give me a shout and we can organize.
All
There's
right.
so much more. There's so much
Oh,
more.
we can tell. We can tell. We just scratched the surface, man.
You guys didn't even get past the first layer.
This is just a little introduction. This is let people ease into it, and then we'll get into the nitty gritty. They'll love that. So, but yeah, Chevy, thank you so much. Appreciate you coming on, and as always, hail to Pitt.
Hey, thank you very much. Can't wait till the next time.
Yeah,
Absolutely. We'll hold you to it.
I'll be here.
This segment is brought to you by Roback. There's only one way to describe Roback, and it's best fit, best feel. Their performance polos are hands down the best polos out there. Not only do they have the coolest designs, but also breathable and moisture wicking. I'm rocking a quarter zip right now. Definition of versatile. You can wear them to the office, to the gym, on the links. Golf season's coming up, so go get you one. The hoodies, comfiest thing ever. Squid got one on right now. These, I can't even describe how comfortable it is. They gave us 3 pieces of clothing, the polo, the quarter zip, and the hoodie, and they are, in no particular order, the 3 comfiest, nicest things I own officially. So,
Yeah, I can't take it off. It's so good for laying down. It's so good for running and moving around in, if that's like a thing that you do.
So everything. It's good for anything, whether you're laying around being fat or if you're out running around. I went for a jog today in this, and it was perfect.
So if you want some Roback, trust me, you do. Use the code LoyalSons on Roback.com for 20% off your first order. That's spelled RHOBACK.com. That's 20% off all polos, Q-zips, hoodies, and tees with the code LoyalSons.
And if it's not your first time, just make a new email address.
Once again, thank you to Chevy Troutman for joining us, and thank you to you all for listening to this episode of The Loyal Sons. But before we send everybody into the sunset, Squid, Dylan, hit me with some final thoughts.
Jim Boeheim is so insufferable. Like, we dislike the guy for a lot of reasons, but I think he's just kind of ruining his legacy by being a dick. He always shits on reporters, specifically student reporters, in his post-game press conferences, and then out of the blue, he just takes shots at Pitt and Wake Forest for, quote, buying teams out of the blue.
Financial juggernauts, Pitt and Wake Forest.
Like, I can't.
Yeah, he college coaches just stick around too long all the time. I mean, he's 78 years old. Like, go retire. Enjoy retirement. Go do something else.
Yeah, your kids are gone. What are you sticking around for? Your team stinks.
Still playing a 2-3. It's just stop. Just get out of here. Jim Boeheim, man, I can't stand that guy.
Yeah,
I mean, even better, Brandon Knight coming out of the woodwork to throw a jab at him too.
Yeah.
Say, hey, you've been around for a while. We know what you do. They were under pretty brutal sanctions back in the day. So,
yeah, he's at 78. He's ill-equipped to operate a motor vehicle, much less a college basketball program. He just needs to stop, man. He's been doing this old curmudgeon thing for so long, and I just can't get over the schools he selected to harp on. I mean, we could run down the list of how we got everyone in this transfer portal, but honestly, now that I think about it, I think we should be honored that Pitt was even accused of having buy entire team money.
mm-hmm.
Hey, even if Pitt does start to do that, you're not going to hear any complaints from me. Let's buy all. If we can get the money, buy whoever we can find.
I
But
mean, it's legal now.
yeah,
What is he bitching about?
bitching to bitch.
Go drive off into the sunset and pick your nose somewhere else.
Well, all right. Well, that leads to one of my final thoughts. Mentioned Brandon Knight. His number 20 is retired up in the rafters at the Peterson Event Center, and it brings me to a question that was posed on Twitter this week. Is it time to retire Dejuan Blair's number? There's a bit of momentum behind the Pitt basketball program again, and some videos floating out there around Dejuan Blair, and just kind of reminded of how much of a beast he was at Pitt. And the overwhelming sentiment was, yes, this is a no-brainer. Pitt should absolutely retire his number. You did have a handful of people who, I don't know if they just want to be different or they're just miserable, who are like, oh no, he only played 2 years at Pitt. They didn't win a national championship with Dejuan Blair at Pitt. But I think 45 should be retired. Dejuan Blair was a first-team All-American, went to Shenley High School like 100 yards from the Pete, came to Pitt, led them to the most successful season they've had ever, pretty much, besides like the 1939 national championships that they claim. And just an absolute hometown hero, legend, was best player in the Big East, gave us some of the best memories of Pitt basketball we can remember. Who's going to have the balls to even try to wear that number 45 in a Pitt uniform again?
Has no one worn it since?
It's a good question. I didn't do that research.
Oh, well,
I don't think so.
either way, I mean, man, you were talking earlier about like being a younger kid, planning your day around Pitt basketball. That him throwing Hashim Thabit over his shoulder is the number one remember where you were moment for me in Pitt basketball history. I was in my basement. I had a St. Sebastian game earlier that day and booked it home for that top 5 matchup. And I was still in like my warm-ups, jumping up and down like, oh my God, how did he do that?
It was number 1 versus number 3, I believe. And then you have Pitt UConn, already a pretty big rivalry in the Big East. Pitt in the midst of the best season they've had in the program's history. And you have a kid from Pittsburgh flipping a future lottery pick over his shoulder. And it was just the perfect like summation of what Pitt basketball was. Like, we're tougher than you. We'll beat you up. Hard nosed, gritty. And I think if there's one image of Pitt basketball from the early 2000s, mid 2000s, that's the picture you think of when you think of Pitt basketball.
Yeah. Speaking of pictures, whether they retire his jersey or not, I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know who makes that decision, what goes into it exactly. But there was a great suggestion on Twitter that there needs to be a mural of Dejuan Blair slinging Hashim over his back somewhere in the Pete. So at the very least, let's get one of those.
The most underrated part of that entire thing is that Blair probably could have been ejected for that, but the call was a reaching foul on Thabit. That was just Big East basketball, baby.
Nowadays, I was watching the clips from that game. Nowadays, Dejuan Blair would have been on the bench in the first half with 2 fouls like 3 minutes into the game. Just a completely different era, a completely different conference, completely different way of life. The Big East.
Jim Calhoun would have stormed off the bench, then the review that.
Yep.
And they would have called Blair for a hook and hold, and instead of Pitt ball, it would be UConn ball. Blair gets his extra foul on the bench, 2 free throws for UConn.
Better times. Quick side note, we don't have to derail this too much, but when is Kenny Pickett's number 8 getting retired?
Hopefully they can wait until the on-campus stadium is announced. I think that'd be the perfect time to do it, but
I mean, 8 will
I don't
be
think it'll wait
retired,
that
right?
long.
Yeah.
At some point.
I think they need to time it up with one of his Super Bowl wins.
We still have Aaron Donald to go. Donald will get his jersey retired.
8 and 97 together. We'll see.
We'll space it out. I'm sure it's in the works.
Yeah, gotta be. My final thought is just some news to share with all of you guys about the show. You might have caught it at the beginning of the show. We have a new presented by. So I guess the news would then be we have begun working with an organization called Section 5. Section 5 is a kind of marketing outlet that has a podcast network specifically for ACC podcasts, founded by a couple really good dudes in Blacksburg, Virginia. They're a bunch of Virginia Tech grads. Pat Finn, John Iezzi, and Billy Ray Mitchell, and they reached out to us to kind of help expand their network. And we've been working this deal out for a couple weeks. Just a couple important things to say on this. First of all, we want to thank the hell out of Pittsburgh Sports Now for working with us and giving us the opportunity. We are no longer working with them, but we loved those guys. They gave us a massive opportunity, and we've got to work with some really great people. George Michalowski, Harry Paceris. Harry, if you're listening to this, are we still Greek, even though we aren't technically in the family anymore? Or do we get
pronounce
that?
his name right? So I think we're still in the.
Yeah, he told us that we're in his family, and because we're in his family, we're Greek. And I just want to know if we can still be Greek, because I really like spanakopita. Okay. We are still going to very much be the same Loyal Sons in terms of content. We're going to try to clean up a couple things and be more consistent. But we know that you don't listen to us because we are Scott Van Pelt or, Al Michaels or anything. We're just a couple dickheads out here having fun, and we will always maintain that same fly by the seat of our pants energy.
Yeah, we're excited for the opportunity to do some cross collaboration, working with some other ACC schools. Might be able to get us some guests, some more insight on some of these other teams and how things operate. But just really excited. It's the standard. Really excited for the opportunity. We're blessed and honored and humbled to receive this offer and to commit. What are some other recruit buzzwords?
Man,
Respect my decision.
Instead of doing this announcement, we should have just made like a notes app post and made it.
We still can.
We can do that on Twitter. We can do that on Twitter. Yeah. But like I said, this is not going to change our style at all.
Squid, can you make a graphic? Like a very...
Oh, yeah.
Like we'll put like
with our signatures on the bottom?
Yeah. We'll whip something up.
Yeah, that'll
I'll
be
put
good.
us in some Pitt uniforms too, like we're players.
This is also part of the new deal is during the podcast, we actually do plan, and you get the behind the scenes look of how we decide to do things. It's exactly like this.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah. This is how this works.
Worked. I think that's where we can close this one out. Pitt basketball is fun again. We're making new friends, new sponsors, and wow, this is. Remember our first episode?
Again. The first episode we released, or the first 3 that we recorded and
the ones we tried to record, we all just showed up at your house and we were just like, so what are we going to use to record this? We all kind of looked at each other like, yeah, I guess we didn't think of that.
Did we just use your phone?
I think so. Because we didn't do videos. I think we might have just used...
Yeah, we were sitting around recording on a notes. That was fun. Well, how far we've come. But as always, hail Loyal Sons of Pittsburgh.